I'll call to order the November Finance Committee meeting. Welcome everybody here this afternoon. Due to the Safer at Home order, all committee members are participating virtually. For virtual meetings, committee members will be muted until asked to be heard. When there is a vote, it will be necessary to take a roll call vote. Committee member may be recognized and will raise their hand and state their vote. Thank y'all all very much. With that, we will get going and we will begin with the consent agenda. I have C11 pulled. Are there any other items anyone would want pulled?
C9.
I have C9 and C11.
Move for approval of the ballot.
We have a motion to approve the balance of consent. Do I have a second?
Second, McIntosh.
Okay, with that, I will now a roll call for approval of the consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Yay.
And Mr. Clark. We all vote yes, so those are approved. We will now go to the individual items, and I'll do them numerically with C9. If the secretary please read that one.
Item C9, resolution awarding contract for asphalted concrete to Yadkin Valley Paving Incorporated for $2,316,693.75.
Okay. Mr. Larson, you had a question or comment on this?
Yes, I do. There's a lot of interest, obviously, in road pavings right now in Winston-Salem. This amount of money, basically $2.3 million, is for allocation of 2021, as I understand it. We have a lot of work unfinished, I think, from this year's contract. Can somebody sort of brief me on how the road paving system's going here and what this 2.3 is going to actually accomplish next year?
Mr. Taylor, are you online?
Yes, sir.
You have the floor.
Good evening, Chairman Clark, Mayor Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, other members of the council and committee. Actually, we are working on our current resurfacing contract, bond package 2. Everything is going well with that. We are approaching a time of the year where we will have to hold off due to our asphalt plants closing. As for the $2.3 million in the item tonight, this is basically a recommendation to approve a contract for asphalt used for various things, fine paving jobs that we do. This is not necessarily for resurfacing. This is for all of the other things that we do, potholes, utilities repair, base repairs, all of those things that we do outside of our normal resurfacing program. So that's what these particular contract will deal with.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Larson, you have any other questions or comments?
I think that clarifies it. I would like to know about the unfinished, we submitted a list of roads to be paved in a 2-year work program. And I know some of those have been gotten paved, but a lot of them don't seem to have gotten paved yet. And so I'm kind of curious as to what the prospects are of how much we can expect to still get paved this year. And I've got constituents that are asking about the roads and they haven't gotten paved. So can somebody at some point sort of inform me? I know we're waiting on weather. I know weather's a key issue here, but I'm getting a little concerned that we're not going to meet our goals of getting all the pavement done this year that we're going to do. And if that's the case, what do we got carried over next year?
Okay, if staff could give us a list of the paving ones in the current year budget and status of each one of them would be nice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can I get a motion to approve C9?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve C9. I will now roll call Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Yay.
And the chair votes yes. So that is approved. We will now go to C11. If the secretary please read that. Excuse me, the clerk please read that.
Item C11, consideration of items relating to the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget ordinance for the city of Winston-Salem. Ordinance amending the annual appropriation and tax levy ordinance for the city of Winston-Salem for the fiscal year 2020-2021, and ordinance amending the project budget ordinance for the city of Winston-Salem for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Mr. McIntosh, this is yours. You have the floor.
Chairman Clark, I make a motion to reallocate a portion of my budgeted travel expenses to make a one-time contribution of $7,000 to Applied Family Services. The proposed budget amendment transfers $7,000 from the Northwest Ward travel and meeting expenses to provide a public purpose grant to Applied Family Services.
Okay. Is
Second.
that's an amendment? You're making an amendment to the motion?
Correct.
Okay, we have a second on it. Any other questions or comments? If not, I will do a roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Yay.
and I vote yes. So that is approved. Thank y'all all very much.
Thank
That
you.
concludes the consent agenda. We will now go to the general agenda. If the clerk will please read G1.
Item G1, resolution accepting a North Carolina drinking water state revolving fund loan for the Nielsen Water Treatment Plant modernization project.
Ms. Saunders, are you on the line? If you could introduce this, please.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of City Council. A resolution before you is to accept a loan from the North Carolina Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund. In September of 2017, City Council approved an application for funding of $60 million. In October of 2019, City Council approved a resolution to accept a loan for $40 million. Since that time, we've been approved for another $20 million. So we have a re-amended offer from the state for a $60 million loan. It was approved by the Local Government Commission on September the 1st for a term of 20 years at an interest rate of 1.11%. This project is already approved in the capital improvement program for the city. If we were to borrow these funds in our traditional revenue bond capacity, we would pay interest rates of coupons of probably 3%, but the average interest cost would be anywhere between 2.25% and 2.35% in today's market environment. Of course, that's subject to change on market conditions, but we recommend approval of the resolution.
And what is the rate on these?
This is 1.11.
So
Which is
half.
actually down. Yeah, and it's actually down. When we accepted the $40 million loan, it was at 1.63. And prior to that, it was almost 2%. So with each addition, we've gotten actually a little bit better rate every time because of the market.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from anyone? Ms. Adams?
Yes. Could Mr. DeCane or staff kind of give the public what this money will do?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Chairman Clark, Mayor Joines, members of the committee, members of the City Council, and council members elect. My name is Damon Duquesne, Assistant City Manager. So the purpose of the project is to take R.W. Nielsen Water Treatment Facility and modernize it. Nielsen has been built in phases over time. Basically 3 separate phases. So what we essentially have is a 48 million gallon a day water treatment facility that functions as almost 3 separate plants. So the purpose of the project is to modernize, of course, the older portions of the facility, to put in equipment that is compatible with each other. So equipment that was installed in 1970 doesn't have the same parts and pieces and technology that items that were installed in 1990 have. You know, if Flint, Michigan is any indicator, we don't want to be cheap in the way that we modernize and care for our water treatment facilities. So this project is to take a plant built over time in several phases and turn it into one new modern facility for our consumers.
Mr. Chair, Mr. DeCane, have we done anything like this with our other treatment facilities of this magnitude or update?
Yes, ma'am. Most recently, we did the Thomas Water Treatment Plant located on Martin Luther King, where we actually took the plant out of service completely and rebuilt it. And prior to that, we had done a very similar project out at the Swan Water Treatment Plant, which was actually just before my tenure with the city, which I would say is probably 10 years ago.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. McIntosh, did you have a comment?
I did. I had a question for Ms. Saunders. This loan, the numbers we're looking at here has a closing fee of 2% on it. So our real cost of borrowing is really 3.11.
Well, it's, I haven't calculated that out, Councilmember McIntosh,
Because it gets
but you have to
amortized.
remember, we actually don't start making payments. So it's a little bit different than our normal borrowings. We won't begin making payment on this, even though we start drawing the money down until 18 months after the construction is complete.
And we would have a closing fee were we to do it the same way we did it last time, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And that's a one-time fee. It's not an annual.
It is a one-time fee.
Non-recurring.
It's a one-time, yeah, it's a recurring one-time fee.
And the debt service is actually serviced by the citizens and the businesses that use water and sewer in the city.
Correct.
Correct.
It's serviced by water and sewer revenues, yes.
Yeah, so there's no property tax that goes into paying down this debt.
No, there is not.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Larson?
Yes, follow up on Councilmember McIntosh's query. What is our current debt load from Utilities Commission that we're carrying? And the reason I'm asking that is always a concern that our debt load is going to dictate some sort of rate increase for our water sewer bills. So can somebody sort of address
Sure.
where we are financially?
Sure. So our revenue bonds outstanding to date are $375 million at the end of June 30th, 2020. With the addition of this loan, our state loans authorization to draw down is about $172 million. Of course, we only draw it as we need it, and we're paying principal at the same time. So our amount outstanding is more like $100 million on those right now. So to sum it up, there's 100 of state loans and about 375 in revenue bonds, so about 475 million, but for both of them.
And do we carry a cash reserve in utilities?
We do. We are required by bond covenants to keep a certain amount of cash in utilities on an ongoing basis. And another thing to note is on an annual basis, we pay $30 million a year in pay-as-you-go or out of our own cash or savings account for capital in the utilities fund.
So
we're not borrowing all the money that we use for capital.
Basically, the bottom line is we won't have a rate increase in water and sewer in the immediate future because of this allocation.
Not because of this allocation, but our cash flow projection does look at recurring rate increases every year in the utility fund.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Chairman, I make a motion to approve item G1.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to second on G1. I'll go down the roll. Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Yay.
and Mr. Clark votes yes. That is approved, and that was G1. We will now go to G2. If the clerk will please read this one.
Item G2, resolution awarding contract for Meadowlark Drive widening project to Smith Rowell LLC for $7,685,944.11 located in the West Ward.
Mr. Kane, this is a long time overdue. Would you please fill everybody in on what we're doing? And I'd be particularly interested on when you think we'll start the work and when it'll finish.
Of course, Chairman Clark. Good evening again to all of you. So this project has been a long time coming. As you heard, this is a 2014 bond project. There's been considerable development in this area of the city. Over time, that has caused some traffic congestion issues. The project boundaries are Meadowlark between Robin Hood and Country Club. Many of you may be familiar that Meadowlark has two schools located on it, and both of those thoroughfares are heavily traveled. So the intent is to widen Meadowlark in various areas. The school system has agreed to make some changes on their property to help with non-COVID school issues. It's been a great partnership working with them. There's a tremendous amount of public participation in this from the surrounding citizens, and all of that input was put into the project. And we're grateful to Councilmember Clark, our engineers, and our staff, and the school system for being all very good partners in getting this together. We did have some challenges when we first bid this project. Federal funds in the form of congestion mitigation and air quality funds were secured. Many thanks to the MPO and the members of this committee and our political body who participated in that. And at any rate, we're here today with a bid price that is under our estimate, partially funded by the federal government, and we're very pleased to have this item before you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Can I get a motion to approve, please?
Move for approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on G2. I'll roll call vote now. Ms. Adams,
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
and Mr. Clark votes yes. So that G2 is approved. Thank y'all very much. We will now go to G3. If the clerk will please read that one.
Item G3, resolution authorizing financial assistance for proposed multifamily housing development at Essex Place for $350,000 located in the southwest.
Ms. Logan Ford, would you like to introduce this, or Ms. Newman, whoever would like to?
I need to unmute myself.
That would help.
Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, council member-elects. Item G3 is Essex Place. This is an item for us to support an affordable housing development. It consists of 48 units. The total development is $7.9 million. And the request that Ms. Newman will explain is of $350,000 to support this development. So Ms. Newman, if you would please go into the detail of the city's request for support.
Thank you. Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, council, and council-elect. Again, I'm Marla Newman, Community Development Director. And before you for consideration today, again, is Essex Place. This, as Ms. Logan Ford mentioned, is a multifamily development. It is 100% affordable. It targets incomes at 30% and 60% of area median. The rents for the apartments are contained here in the council action request, and the rents range from a low of $293 per month up to a high of $888 per month for a 3-bedroom. The $293 is for a 1-bedroom for someone who is at 30% of AMI. The $888 per month for the 3-bedroom is targeted at someone who is 60% of AMI. For each of the bedroom types, there are units for both 30% and 60% of AMI. So 1-bedrooms will have some of both income targets. And again, we have 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedrooms, and that is the rent exclusive of the utility allowance. And there are utility allowances included for each of these developments. Each of the unit types. The debt was a combination of low-income housing tax credits, a workforce housing loan from North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, and then permanent bank debt, which left a gap in the amount of $350,000. And so what we are looking at is a joint venture between Sylvan Partners, as well as Shelter Investments, and then Third Wave Housing, which is run by someone you're often familiar with, is Richard Angino. And the prior development experience covers a wide range of communities, some here in the Triad, in particular in Moxville, and then in Statesville. So you see the total development cost, and the gap financing would be a subordinate mortgage that would be funded by housing finance funds.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just very briefly just want to say that, as we all know, we're dire straits in terms of creating affordable housing. So I'm delighted to see a project such as this come forward with 100% of the units affordable. And it seems to be a very reasonable request to the city. It fits very well within the parameters of what we're doing. So delighted to see this and the other projects coming forward.
Thank you. Mr. McIntosh.
I'm really happy to see this project. This one's actually going to go forward. We have rezoned and gnashed our teeth over affordable housing projects now for the last, I don't know how many years, and none of them ever get built. This one's going to get built. So I'm just really excited about it. I also do appreciate the fact that this is going to the Southwest Ward. And I would encourage every council member or council member elect to think about where in their ward a project like this could go and step up, and let's share the wealth on this.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie? And this is your ward, by the way. This is Southwest Ward. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a good example of a truly affordable housing development. As Councilmember McIntosh indicated, it's one that is moving forward. This is gap financing. It's coming from the right place. Housing development funding. I will note that a couple things about the project that have perhaps not been mentioned. It's well located. It's close by a circulator transit route, which makes stops for shopping at more than one stop along its route. It is certainly in the category of housing, affordable housing that we need a lot more of in our community. I'd also note that I think the funding for this gap funding is coming from the right place from the city. It's coming from housing investment bonds. When the project was first shared with me as a proposal by staff, my understanding was that they were looking at tax increment financing under the theory that this was economic development eligible. I did not think that was an appropriate idea, and let staff know that. I'm glad they found a more appropriate source for the funds for that.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Yes, as we all know across the country, again, all cities are in dire needs of housing, affordable housing, and income-based housing. I don't want us to think that all housing fits in one box, because it doesn't, but we need it nevertheless. The one thing that I liked, as I tell people that we need to do when we present these projects, is when we say AMI, we need to use the HUD housing AMI numbers, and for 30% to 60% in Winston-Salem or this area, that means a person that wants a one-bedroom and it's just them, their income could go from $14,000 to $28,000 a year. If that's a family of four, that could be $20,000 to $40,000 a year. So yes, this is income-based affordable housing. And again, I'd like to thank the organization, the Essex Group, for this project.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I'd like a motion to approve, please.
Move for approval.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second to approve what number are we on? G3. I will now canvass the members. Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Okay.
And the chair votes aye as well. So G3 is approved. We will now go to G4.
Item G4, consideration of items regarding financial assistance for proposed multifamily housing development. Resolution authorizing financial assistance for proposed multifamily housing development at Whitaker Park for $1 million located in the North Ward. Ordinance amending the project budget ordinance for the city of Winston-Salem for fiscal year 2020-2021.
Mr. Raleigh, your name's at the top here. Would you like to introduce this to us?
Certainly, Chairman Clark. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee and council member-elect. This item is a request to provide gap financing to support the development of a project that is being called the Whitaker Park Loss. It's a 163-unit multifamily housing project that's proposed to be constructed in the historic former R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company buildings that are located on the Whitaker Park complex. And you do have a map in your item that shows the specific location within the Whitaker Park complex that these lofts are proposed to be constructed. This development, I did say it was 163 units. The breakdown of those units, 82 one-bedrooms, 62 bedroom units, and 21 3-bedroom units. The market rates will range from $1,200 per month for the 1-bedrooms up to $2,100 per month for the largest 3-bedroom units. Staff has discussed with the developer the mayor and city council's desire to expand workforce housing opportunities in the city, and pleased to report the developer has committed to setting aside a minimum of 10% or 16 units per the city's adopted workforce housing guidelines for a 15-year period. The workforce housing guidelines call for those units to be made affordable for households earning between 80% and 100% of area median income, which for a household size of 4, that's at 80% is $53,400 per year. 120% is just north of $80,000 per year for a household size of 4. The units that will be set aside, the developer is proposing that it be eight 1-bedroom units and 8 2-bedroom units. The set aside 1-bedroom units will rent from $950 per month, and the set aside 2-bedroom units will be renting for $1,250 per month. Just a little background on the developer. Chris Harrison, the developer is C.H. Harrison Companies. It's led by Chris Harrison. They're from Bethesda, Maryland. The focus of the company is on creating affordable living opportunities for segments of the population that have typically been priced out of metropolitan areas. CHA has developed properties all over the Southeast, focusing heavily in the DC, Virginia, Richmond, Virginia area, and notably locally, Chris Harrison was also the developer of the Plant 64 development located here in downtown Winston-Salem. The Whitaker Park Loft project represents the first of several phases of development at Whitaker Park that CHA plans to undertake. The total build out is projected to be somewhere between $80 and $100 million. That would include retail, proposed hotel, along with the development that we're discussing here this evening. The developer has indicated that the size of the gap is approximately $1.85 million as currently structured. This is a $42 million total development, $1.85 million current gap, which the developer is seeking city assistance in the amount of $1 million. Now, the previous iteration of this project had a much more sizable gap. It was approximately $3 million. The project in that previous form did set aside 20% of the units for folks, for households earning 60% of the area median income, which contributed to a sizable gap. The developer has tweaked the project, as I've suggested, with respect to the units and the unit mix to close that gap. He has also put in additional owner equity, and I understand has secured some additional lines on the permanent financing. You can see there in the item the breakdown of the capital stack that's for this project. The request of the city, again, is $4 million. City staff is proposing that should the mayor and council committee wants to move forward, that you consider using $500,000 of the city's housing development bond funds and $500,000 of unencumbered funds from the Housing Finance Assistance Fund. We would also recommend that the funding that comes out of the Housing Development Bond Fund be issued in the form of a loan at a 2% interest rate that's amortized over 20 years. The developer has indicated that his intent would be to pay off that loan well in advance of the 20-year allowance, the term of the loan. His intent would be to pay it off as soon as the project stabilizes. I will also say that this project is currently being considered for federal funding. It is currently undergoing the environmental review process, so staff would request the right to amend and substitute any of the funds that are approved out of these previously mentioned pots for any federal funding that the project qualifies for. Just because of the timing issue, we don't quite know definitively at this point what federal funds the project may qualify for. So the developer is present this evening, and I will stop there and I'll be happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Are there any questions?
I have a comment when appropriate, Mr.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I think you've got to look at this project in a couple of ways. First of all, delighted that we're getting another major investment within Whitaker Park, and this time it's residential and some retail that will help support the rest of that project. As you know, it's a huge project, 1.7 million square feet of space there, and to have residential development, 163 units coming into the northern part of our city, I think is phenomenal. Also, again, picking up 16 affordable units coming into the project, I think it is good as well. And I like the way it's being structured. Half of it is a loan that will get repaid, making a 2% return. And Mr. Harrison said they get paid sooner than 20 years. The other being the $500,000 grant. And here's the other part I think you got to look at. It's a $42 million project investment. City will get about $240,000 a year in new property taxes. So in essence, 2 years, a little over 2 years, it will repay that $500,000 loan. And we end up with a great residential project that supports the overall Whitaker Park development. So I think it's structured very smartly. The city's protected, and it will continue to catalyze that development in Whitaker Park. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McIntosh.
This project's a little different than the Essex one that we just worked on. We don't get as many affordable units for the dollars that we're spending, but as I said to Mayor Pro Tem Adams when we were talking about this, this is kind of a hybrid deal. This is part economic development and part housing. It's a twofer. I can remember when I graduated college at Wake in 1980, north end of town was what was booming. That's where all the action was going. Whitaker Park shut down, and it's just been dark. It's been a ghost town over there. This is another step towards bringing that back on the tax rolls and bringing vitality to the area. I know Mayor Pro Tem's got to be excited about it, and I'm excited about it. Again, we don't get as many units of housing, but we're getting housing. The people that will live in this building that are not paying affordable rates, they would be taking units away from somebody else somewhere else. So it's a numbers game, and we just need to keep adding units. So I'm very happy about this project.
Thank you, Ms. McIntosh. Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and this is your ward, I believe?
Yes, it is. I've lived in this ward since 1964. I'm glad and excited about this project. As Councilmember McIntosh and the mayor said, this one is different. And that's why I said earlier, we need to understand that every project of housing we're going to do or economic development, there are going to be different factions of it. And we need to all realize that we need to always assemble all of the tools in the toolbox and use them to the best of our ability. The one thing that I tell people I sometimes refer to is the Field of Dreams movie. If you build it, they will come. When Whitaker Park was built, people came, businesses came, suppliers came, everything just seemed to mesh at the same time in Winston. And when it went dark in 2009, 2010, even before that, that area of the city just started to somehow die. We're looking to start just not residential living, but we're looking for commercial and economic development with the airport to the east, the new Akron Drive. As a matter of fact, plans coming online talking about what Wake Forest is hoping to do now with Deacon Boulevard. And I'm excited about it. But in order for economic development to come to the north end of town, you've got to have something there that people want to be a part of, whether that's restaurants, whether that's small businesses, whether it's green spaces. And I will be supporting this project, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Bessie.
Yes, I have some questions about the source of the grant. Perhaps Mr. Raleigh could enlighten me. The Housing Finance Assistance Fund, what is it normally designated for? And with $500,000 taken for this project, how much would be left in it?
Certainly, Councilmember Bessie, the Housing Finance Assistance Fund has supported a multitude of different housing-related projects. Just to give you some flavor for what those have been, we have encumbered funds for demolitions. We've encumbered funds for different grants to different housing development projects. There's actually an encumbrance in the fund now for a project that's not going to come to fruition. It was the proposed rehabilitation of a former grocery store that was located at the corner of Northwest Boulevard and Patterson Avenue that the Union Baptist Church Community Development Corporation was going to take on. So it's been a number of different things, mostly housing related, but some related to other projects. And with regard to your second question about the balance in the account, should both of these, the item that was the previous item and this item, be approved, the unencumbered balance in the fund would be about $89,000. But I do want to make certain that you understand that there are a number of projects. We have some cleanup in the fund to do. There are projects that have current encumbrances that will not be coming to fruition. Some of the ones I just mentioned. And that is somewhere on the order of magnitude of $400,000 to $500,000, just taking a quick pass at it. So I would estimate, should this project be approved tonight, once we do that cleanup in the fund, we'd still have an unencumbered balance of somewhere on the order of $500,000 in that fund.
All right, I would just say that my comments on the appropriate source of funding for projects would apply to this one too. I'm not certain that this is the most effective use of such a large part of our balance in housing finance assistance. I would throw that out there for consideration by the committee.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Adams?
I have a request also, Chair Clark, is that staff, every time we look at the housing purposes and the finance accounts and the fund balances, every time one of these projects come to us, there needs to be a one-sheeter or two-sheeter that shows all of the housing we're building or have built in the past 3-4 years or 10 years, I don't care. But it needs to show the numbers and the total, because every project now needs to be whether it was funded by city, government, or funded privately, but we're growing the number of units because the city is not going to be the only one growing the units. We also need to look at, as even Councilmember Bessie stated, and I'm sure others on this meeting, we need to be able to see the snapshot of these balances of where the money is coming from as we move forward in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Larson. John, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to stay offline here. The historic tax credits, $9.5 million almost are being dedicated to this project. I think the public should know the National Register listing does make a difference. We've seen this in the city elsewhere, and this has made this project possible by putting basically $9.5 million into the project. And I think that's a good tribute to the reusing of historic properties, of which we know we've got a number of them still in the city to do. I have one minor question, and somebody can answer to me that the question is 120% of the median income. Is that's considered affordable housing eligible? Can somebody, what that threshold, that's 120%, how's that established? I understand the 80% below the median income, but 120 above, as it were, the median income is still qualifies for affordable housing. Is that, how is that set?
It does. And Meredith, if you could please put up the income limits, the HUD income limits on this.
Yeah, I saw that briefly earlier, and
It's coming back. There you go.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Each year, HUD provides income limits for us based on the household size, and the range is 30 to 120% of your area median income. So if you're looking at the chart that's provided there for a household of one, a person would have to make between $37,400 up to $56,001 in order to qualify for one of these units. So it's still considered affordable up to 120% AMI according to the HUD guidelines. So we would use this table, and it's specific to the Winston-Salem MSA.
So if an individual is making 56,000 a year, they would be considered eligible for this project
Yes.
as their income. Okay.
Mhm.
And then that number is set by HUD?
It is. And it can change annually. These are updated on an annual basis.
Right. Just trying to figure out where our thresholds of entry into these houses actually. This chart is published somewhere online for people to see if they're eligible for this kind of housing.
It is, but we can make sure that it's provided to you all. And
I think it's interesting if people are out there making, certain levels of income. I think it's difficult for them to understand whether they fall in the 80% or the 50% or 100% or what they are. So if we could make this available, then they would know what kind of housing they'd be eligible for.
Sure.
As we talk about this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Can I get a motion on this, please?
I move for approval, Chair.
Second,
Can I get a second?
McIntosh.
Okay, before I do it, I will offer just a few comments to wrap up what's been said here. I do think it's important, given the number of housing projects we have going on, and Ms. Adams alluded to this, we need a running total as we go. And there's 2 or 3 different pots or groups of, I guess pots would be the best way of money that we do to show what's been encumbered or that we've allocated to and how much is left. And Mr. Raleigh, back to your point on encumbered, once we vote to do it, that money's encumbered until they do it or don't do the project. And I think at some point, if a project hasn't taken place, we need to get back with the parties and ask about it. And if we need to unencumber it, I think it needs to be a vote of the council as well. Because the last thing we want to do is spend the same dollar twice and both projects get approved and suddenly we don't have enough money. So I think those are all very good comments. Last comment I would make is in this one and in the last one, the city's put in about 2 to 3% of the total. So that's a lot of leverage for us. And I think that's very impressive. With that, we have a motion and a second. I'll now do a roll call on G4. Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
And Mr. Clark votes yes. That is approved. That's G4. We will now go to G5. If the clerk will please read this one.
Item G5, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Alta Planning Plus Design for the Safe Routes to School non-infrastructure project.
Mr. Kane, can you or whoever please introduce this project to us?
Yes, sir. Good evening again, Chairman Clark and all of you. I'm going to pass the torch to Mr. Matthew Burchick, our bicycle and pedestrian coordinator.
Okay.
So Matthew, introduce the item, please.
Matthew, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Duquesne. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and council member-elect. My name is Matthew Burchick. I'm the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator with the Department of Transportation. And as announced, this is an item requesting authorization for us to enter into an agreement with Alta Planning and Design to manage a $250,000 Safe Routes to School non-infrastructure grant for the city. And a little background on this, if you've heard me present on any of our bike and pedestrian planning efforts in the past, you've heard about the need, in order for us to build a truly robust bike and pedestrian program, the need to focus on not only the infrastructure improvements, so the physical improvements like trails and sidewalks, but also the program related elements. So the education, the encouragement, the engagement with the public, in order to really make the public aware and make them knowledgeable about the transportation choices that they have. So this project would really allow us to enhance those programmatic elements of our bike and pedestrian program. So what we would do is have Alta Planning and Design manage this project for us and really expand upon the program that we have in place right now. Nearly a decade ago, we started our Safe Routes to School on infrastructure program with a bike and pedestrian safety program. And we've partnered with the Winston-Salem County School District And in the past 8-9 years, we've had over 7,000 students go through that program. So our goal with this grant was really to expand upon that program, do more education, more encouragement efforts in the school system, and really engage with the schools and the families to promote the safe use of biking and walking as viable transportation options.
Okay.
So yeah, we have the $250,000 grant. There's a $50,000 local match that is required. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Scipio, I see your hand.
Yes, I'm concerned about the children who don't walk to school. So many of the children in our inner city are bused out of the city to go to schools in the county. And I wonder, how does this program impact those students? Because we just don't have inner city schools that children walk to.
Sure. So, part of the one element of this is education. So, even if students are being bused to schools, there's still that interaction with traffic at the schools and education of parents who are dropping kids off, for instance, about what their requirements are for interacting with students who may be even getting off of a bus or using a bus to get around to different schools. So, we will focus on all aspects of transportation with this, and provide that education for drivers as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Can I get a motion, please?
Move for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on G5. I will now roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Hey.
and Mr. Clark votes yes. That is approved. That's G5. We will now go to G6.
Item G6, resolution awarding purchase order for energy storage system battery units to Clark Power Services Incorporated for $1,161,300.
Mr. Kane, is this you again? I see your name on the list.
Yes, sir. And in true form and fashion, I'm going to pass this off to everyone's favorite WISTA General Manager, Ms. Donna Woodson.
Okay, Ms. Woodson, you have the floor.
Good evening, Chairman Clark, Mayor Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Council, Finance Committee, and the council member-elect. First, I apologize for not having video available due to some technical difficulties. But this item before you tonight, staff has presented for, currently we have WISTA has a total of 45 fixed route buses. 37 of those buses are hybrid buses, which require a battery pack for operation. We currently have some buses that are, to be honest, not in operation, waiting for batteries to be purchased per this agreement and this approval. We brought this to you. This has come up, the difference between the hybrid buses and the diesel buses. One of the things that staff has chosen to purchase hybrid buses is for, of course, obvious reasons, for air quality, noise pollution, and fuel savings. So we wanted to bring this to you all tonight for an approval for the 6 batteries that we need for current, and then up to 15 additional batteries as needed to have them on order. So when we don't have to have any buses out of service pending a battery pack.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve, please? Oh, excuse me, Mr. Larson, you had a comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to compliment them for, it's part of our sustainability goals. We're going to hear more about this tomorrow, I think, in housing and government. But we have, as a city, have got to begin to address some of our carbon footprint, and really our transportation department has sort of led the way on trying to move ourselves off of traditional fuel sources into the electronic world. So thank you for your leadership in that.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve, please? Oh, excuse me, Mr. McIntosh.
Just real quickly, I just want to say that going forward, the pace of development in battery technology is massive. So we're going to see these costs come down over time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, may I get a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on G6. I will now roll call. Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. McIntosh?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Yay.
And Mr. Clark votes yes. That is approved. We will now go to G7. Clerk, please introduce this.
Item G7, monthly revenue update.
Okay. I see Mr. Rao or Ms. Tony, either one of y'all out there.
Good afternoon, Mayor Jones, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Chairman Clark, members of the committee, council, and council members elect. I am Patrice Toney. I'm the Budget and Evaluation Director. And during the budget planning process, there was many uncertainties about how COVID-19 was going to affect our revenues. And so we were asked to provide a monthly revenue report just so we can keep track of our revenue trends and not be any surprises. The report also includes charts for some of our other funds, which would be like occupancy tax fund, utility franchise taxes, fairgrounds fund, and parking fund. And we'll review some of these revenue funds and other funds at our November 17th meeting in a little bit more detail. But since the last update, there hasn't been many changes. We've updated most of our end of year projections. And one thing of note, well, a couple of things. We looked at a 20% decline in our sales tax distributions. Those distributions actually increased slightly over 10%. So our year-end outlook is good. So that is a good thing. And so we projected 20% reduction for countywide sales tax for August and September. And we continue to monitor the sales tax revenue. Like we said, it's just, there could be some factors such as the federal stimulus. So we'll continue to monitor sales tax going forward. The other thing of note is the ABC revenue, and there's not a separate graphic for that, but we received the ABC revenue in October. Staff projected almost a 9% decrease compared to the first quarter of last year. So those are very kind of conservative budgeting. We looked at the Great Recession because, as I mentioned before, we just didn't know how COVID would hit and impact those revenues. But the ABC revenues, the actual distribution was over 31% higher compared to the same time last period. So that is great news as well. We didn't know exactly the cause of that, and so we reached out to the ABC administrator, and their thoughts were that when the bars and restaurants closed, that people then went to the ABC stores, and I guess they stocked up on alcohol, and so that increased their revenues, and then they also closely monitored their budget, and so that kind of helped increase their profits as well. And then lastly, if you'll scroll down to the parking fund and fairgrounds fund, I'll just mention those two. The only real difference in those two are the FY20 actuals. Fairgrounds fund was also updated revenue projections for non-fair events, assuming revenues equivalent to 25% of a normal event year. So those are the only major changes in those two charts. So I'll entertain any questions at this point.
Any questions or comments? And as Ms. Tony just alluded to, there will be a special, I don't know if it's a committee of the whole or what we're calling it, but we're meeting on November the 17th. Yes. Somebody give me a time and place. 4 o'clock virtual, right? Okay, so everybody get that on your calendar. Mr. McIntosh, you had a comment.
Yeah, just on the first chart, can you tell me what goes into the other revenues number that's down 30%?
Mayor, if you could put that chart back up. Let's see. I don't have my notes right in front of me about that particular category, but I believe those are it could be parking, it could be just other kind of funds. Those are general kind of revenue funds. Let me see. I
If
will
we could get-
update.
If we get an update on
Yeah,
that.
I'll get that to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Ms. Tony, while you're at it, I would like some more information on the two below that, the transfers in, which are going to be twice what they were for last year, and the fund balance appropriation, just in general on those.
Okay.
And you may, I would suggest you do that for the meeting on the 17th, so everybody kind of understands what's going on.
I will.
All righty. That's all we have, unless someone, Mr. Larson, you have a comment. Mr. Larson, you're muted again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The forecast for the fairgrounds and parking is rather gloomy all the way up to 2023. You want to comment on that? I mean, we're not expecting a V recovery here, obviously.
Right. Well, the fairground is basically related to, we didn't have a fair this year. And so that will hurt our balance. We'll look at current year providing a subsidy to the fairgrounds fund, probably to the tune of $1 million. You saw it fall by $1 million on the chart. The parking fund, we have to balance the budget in previous, at least last fiscal year, about $500,000 that we did not provide a subsidy for. And so we'll be looking at adding that subsidy back if we can. There's a lot of maintenance costs and things for our parking decks that need to be done. So
this does not indicate that we're not going to do a fair in 2 years.
Probably not.
We don't know.
Right. We don't know at this point.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Ms. Adams.
Yeah, I just want everyone to know or remember, the fair is not the only thing that brings money to the fairground fund. Any of the rodeo shows or outdoor concerts we did, rentals to other groups, all of that is part of that in facilities at the fairground. Also, I saw a note whereas the new parking deck was open. So have we opened all of the parking decks yet, or are we just going to, kind of wait and see how this plays out? Again, from what discussions I've had on a national level with other officials, elected officials, again, when this happened in March, the playbook as president, unless something tremendous changes, we're looking at 2 years minimum of things coming around the corner per se. And that's even with the release of a vaccine that's proven and actually works and can be validated that it does work.
Okay. Thank you. And that's one of the reasons we're having the meeting on the 17th, is to give everybody a look ahead. Mr. McIntosh, you had a comment.
One of the ways to change that curve on the parking fund reserve is to raise parking rates. I think everybody knows that I'm a big proponent of downtown, but parking downtown is where the rest of the city actually subsidizes downtown. We put $500,000 in to maintain our parking infrastructure. That comes from property tax payers all over the city. It should come more from the people who actually park downtown. If we're going to spend $500,000 in any calendar year, I'd like to see us spend that on better technology. We are 25 cents an hour for parking downtown. The next closest rival to us in the state of North Carolina is $1 an hour. So we're way, way behind. I think we need to get behind that movement and upgrade our technology and make downtown parking pay for itself more.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think what I've learned, Ms. Tony, from this is we all need to go home and have a drink. That's the only revenue that's really booming here. So with that, we're finished and we will stand adjourned. And it is 5:30. Mr. Taylor, you're normally scheduled at 6 o'clock. Is that okay?
We're on point for 6 o'clock for public safety.
6 o'clock, public safety. We are adjourned. Thank y'all.